Hello, everybody, and welcome to 3D6 Charge, a podcast about competitive Warhammer 40k, the state of the game, and community news. I'm your host, Chris Vo, and I'm currently dropping my microphone. Joining me tonight is Kevin Lieb.
Hi, I'm currently dropping my phone.
And Benjamin Rubenstein.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, so we got another round of GTs in the books post data slate. So figured we would just kick off by just going over them real quick, just so that we can get like a pulse on what the competitive meta might be like shaping up to be. And there's some interesting results here, so I'll just go over them real quick. There were 4 GTs over the weekend. 2 in England, 1 in Toronto, and 1 in Tennessee. So the Into the Hellstorm GT, first place was Iron Hands. Second place, Orcs. Third place, Thousand Suns. The Hogtowner in Toronto. Iron Hands again in first. Grey Knights in second, and Custodies in third. The Factorum GT in England. Jakari, Deathwatch, Chaos Soup, and Dark Angels. And then the Return of the Leftovers GT in Tennessee. Grey Knights, Orcs, Grey Knights again, and Thousand Suns. And then special shout out for Chaos Knights, which was 5th place at the Leftovers. But yeah, real interesting results there with 2 Iron Hands first place finishes. So we'll talk about that in a little bit later in the show, but like just off of those results right there, what are your guys' thoughts on that?
Space Marines seem to be doing much better. I guess specialized Space Marines.
Well, it's really just Iron Hands, right?
There's a top performing Deathwatch, right?
Deathwatch and second at the Factorum GT.
Do we know if that Deathwatch list was the new detachment, or is it just like some Deathwatch?
I can try to find.
Yeah. So, well, Chris figures that out. The Iron Hand stuff isn't wildly surprising. Iron Hands, like shooty Iron Hands. Well, Iron Hands successor chapter where you use the successor stuff to make yourself good at fighting, and then the baseline Iron Hands like super doctrine rules and stratagems make you already good at shooting, and like all of a sudden you're just kind of good at everything. Like that list has been going around a bit, and it could struggle a little bit into the hyper specialized melee of Admech and Jakari, but now that Admech is really hurting, and Jakari has lost a lot of like the witches flying out of transports playstyle, it's time for that list to shine, I think.
Yeah. Going back to that Deathwatch second place at Factorum, it is using the new Army of Renown.
Yep, that's what I figured. I don't think that most Space Marine lists are strong enough to really keep up. Iron Hands is still somehow, after 5 rounds of nerfs, one of the best ways, if not the best way to play Space Marines. And I think while Iron Hands is quite good, most other Space Marine factions are just going to be too far behind. That Deathwatch specialist attachment strikes me as very powerful. Once people get used to it, we'll see if it can like remain at the top. I wouldn't be shocked. It seems very, very good. I don't really expect to be seeing like a lot of Blood Angels or White Scars like crashing the top meta, although there are certainly some very good Blood Angel players out there who have much more of a chance now that Jakari and Admech are less melee oriented.
Yeah.
Jakari's still very strong. Admech, I feel like is just dead in the water.
I actually don't even know if the Jakari list is worse. It might even be better because of the ridiculous choices that GW made to make Homunculus engines cheaper. But it's not doing the thing that just smashed Iron Hands or that just like smashed these like Space Marine melee lists before. Because you used to be like, oh, I want to play Space Marine melees, and they just look at you and they'd be like, all right, cool. You can only ever go into one combat once because every unit in my army fights like a charge all the time. I have 2 to 3 different fight last abilities in my army, sometimes up to 5. Like you can't declare charges. You can declare 1 charge at me at a time, and it has to be somewhere where I don't have an auto fight last. But I like, still just like have this like 50-50 shot of just making you fight last with my Incubi or Jazars nearby. And now the Jakari list is very good. It's very tanky. It's very shooty. And its fighting is still reasonable. But all of that like things in transport that make you fight last, like that stuff's all gone. It's now a bunch of homunculus engines and characters, and you're actually allowed to fight first when you charge them. And this just makes the matchup like playable for the Space Marine side. Even if the Drakari maybe even gotten better against the rest of the field, into the, like the pure melee matchup, it is worse, which is good. And on the Admech side, Admech's entire army had a fight last effect. They had a 1 command point fight last for pretty much any unit in their army. So no matter what you were charging, you got fought last, and then you would get hit with like 1 million Tesla melee attacks, and you die because they're all damaged too. Which again, not really great for the game. So I'm glad that's gone. And with that moving out of the way, we're going to start seeing these like Iron Hands melee lists picking back up.
Yeah,
it's very, very interesting. Just taking a couple of pegs off of the top 2 armies and just seeing what bubbles up to the surface. Because if you had told me like, hey, Admech and Drakari are going to get nerfed, and then what's going to bubble up to the top? Fucking Iron Hands again. I would have not believed you.
So, kind of a second layer to what Ben was talking about. These Iron Hands lists have been focusing in on Minotaurs. By the way, I think we should just go forward with the GT topic right now and then do our second topic, our first topic second.
I mean, we're already talking about Iron Hands, so let's just go with it.
Yep. So the Space Marine melee is pretty good. It's not crazy, but it's good. The main thing is like with any melee list, you want a little bit of shooting to back you up, like just 6-inch moving guys getting across the field. Like in 9th edition, it's a lot better because most objectives are in the middle, so like you can do things. But if your opponent has something that's like really good at shooting, you're gonna die on your way there. What these Minotaur lists are doing is they're taking the Minotaur character Dreadnought with the plasma cannon, and then another Contemptor Dreadnought with a whole host of options, and just kind of being like, well, I have a shooting list, something that's shooting that can move up the battlefield and not be shot back at, so I can eliminate your shooting threat without my shooting threat going away, and then we're just going to do melee on melee, but I still have shooting. And that's like essentially the lever that these Iron Hands lists have over other Space Marine lists. They have a shooting threat that just can't go down. And that's why, even though Iron Hands melee is in theory worse than Blood Angels melee or White Scars melee, it's net better because they have shooting backup.
Well, the other thing is that their melee is not actually that much worse. It's a little more CP intensive. But a lot of people forget this, but like they have a 1 CP strat for just +1 to hit in melee, which is again like it costs you command points. But that really changes the math on like a lot of melee things. And then more importantly, they have Mercy as weakness, which is oftentimes thought of as a shooting strat, which 1 command point, pick a unit. All of their attacks for a phase have to go into a single enemy unit, and all your 6s to wound will double wound. But like that strat works in fighting. So like all of a sudden, a bunch of jump pack Marines with lightning claws swinging at a unit, and now your 6s to wound are going to double wound. You have like 4 rerolls on wounds for 1 command point. You're just like putting an unbelievable number of saves on that unit. So the fact that Mercy's weakness works in melee, works with lightning claws, makes these like jump pack Marines super, super dangerous.
Yeah. Also, because people are already going into Minotaurs, like a lot of people have also been giving up the main chapter tactic and been going with the classic Born Heroes Whirlwind of Rage combo.
Yep. +1 to advance and charge, and your 6 to hit and melee explode.
No, it's +1 to hit and 6s explode. I'm pretty sure it's the combo.
+1 to hit and 6s explode? Alright, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and which also we're also seeing some of these like Thunder Hammer builds, which means that for 1 CP, your Thunder Hammers can be hitting on 2s.
Which is nuts.
And then and like I said, it's mostly lightning claws with 6 to hit double wounding, or 6s to wound double wounding rather. And then on the shooting side, because the things that makes Iron Hands good at shooting is like their baseline super doctrine is real 1s to hit, and then they have a bunch of excellent stratagems above shooting. And these lists are like fairly command point heavy. They're like usually just one detachment with like a couple extra sometimes a couple extra roller traits sometimes. And they can kind of just pour all of their command points into whatever they need. If they need their Volkite Dreads to just be blowing things off the table, they can do that. If they need their, Lightning Claw Assault Veterans with Thunder Hammers to, be hitting on 2s with the Thunder Hammers and exploding the Lightning Claws on 6s, they can do that. And on top of that, they can also spend command points. They can also spend command points on durability for their infantry, because for 1 CP, you can give an infantry unit a 5-up Feeling of Pain, which is completely miserable when you're trying to take them down with any sort of multi-damage weapon.
Yeah.
The fact that stratagem doesn't care if your baseline Iron Hands is nonsense, because like baseline Iron Hands, you pay command points to go from a 6-up Feeling of Pain to a 5-up Feeling of Pain, but then like the successor chapters, you're spending 1 command point to go from no Feeling of Pain to a 5-up Feeling of Pain, and that is a massive jump in durability. I played Successor Iron Hands for a long time, and I use that strat actually every turn because it ends up being better than Transhuman most of the time, especially back then when Transhuman always cost 2, even on 5-man squads. And it was just really questionable. That strat being a 5-up Feeling of Pain is insane.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that that strat doesn't have like an extra CP cost like most of the others. Pretty much every chapter, I think, except for Iron Hands, they have a strat that like doubles down on their traits, and but they cost more if you're a successor, and that one just doesn't for reasons unclear.
The Raven Guard one doesn't either, but the Raven Guard one is bad, so we don't even talk about it. Yeah, I don't know. The Iron Hands one is extremely that also makes Iron Hands kind of unique. There's not a lot of chapters that just can pour command points into offense and shooting, offense in melee, and defensive mechanics against melee and shooting. And Iron Hands just like have all 3 of those levers, which makes them a very versatile army. They can do any of the things you need them to do. Whereas if you're playing White Scars, you're like, all right, I can spend command points to do better at melee. And that's the option. That's where my command points are going. That's what all of my strats do. Except for like the generic Space Marine defensive strats, which are fine. Transhuman's a powerful strat. But it's not as powerful as the 1 command point. I put a 5-up Feeling of Pain on my 10-man jump assault squad. Like, good luck picking this up off an objective.
Though, that being said, depends on if you're playing successors or not. These lists aren't starting with a lot of CP. They do have powerful strats, but they also aren't giving themselves a lot of CP.
Yeah, but these strats don't cost anything. It's 1 CP to explode your 6s. It's 1 CP to get a 5-up Feeling of Pain. Like, they don't really cost them that much command.
Yeah, like let's see. Who won the Hogtowner 2021? He only starts with 4 CP, and
that's real low though.
It's a little low, but like you said, you're only spending 1 CP on 6s to hit, 6s to wound explode. You're only spending 1 CP for the 5-up Feel No Pain. 4 CP is plenty to get done what you need to get done in like the first 2 turns and get ahead of your. Once you're ahead, as Iron Hands, I feel like it's pretty easy to stay ahead.
Yeah.
I have both these lists, or at least a couple of the ones I looked at were pretty heavy on Volkite Dreads, which is interesting given the Drakari menace that is -1 to take. That is -1 damage like homunculus engines. Curious if they just like dodge that matchup, or if people are gonna like start switching towards like the character las cannon dreads if the homunculus meta really just becomes like the thing that people are playing. But like that's the thing. Like I think that Iron Hands, some version of this Iron Hands list is just going to be excellent for a long time, because even if the meta does devolve into just like 7 Taluses and 9 Chronoses in every list, like this Volkite Dread can just pick up 4 las cannons instead and be a character and just like start solving that problem.
Yeah, well, it's interesting you say that, because like the Hogtowner list, it has Contemptors. It doesn't have the Relic Contemptor. It just has a regular one with the multi-melta, and then just like the combat arm and combi bolt.
Yeah, but that one deals with the problem, right? Like your opponent's running a bunch of like minus damage taken huge idiots. Like, all right, like here's a multi-melta and a damage 3 combat weapon that makes like 7 swings. You're doing the thing. You're picking up Tailless Pain Engines. Tailless Pain Engines are only like damage 2 in melee, or damage 3 if they take their weapon that's -1 to hit. Like they're not actually that dangerous to a
Right, because really
Dreadnought
you're
that's
running
-1
into the
damage taken.
Dreadnought that's duty eternal, and that's -1 damage, and then that damage 2 weapon on the Talos, ain't so scary anymore.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of the Taluses are actually taking like the Thunderhammer option. But again, like the meta's got places to go. Like if this Iron Hands list and that Talos list end up becoming very popular, like expect to start seeing Thunderhammers on Taluses.
Yeah. I'd like to take this moment just to acknowledge how great it is that there's a meta that's evolving and changing.
Yeah, for sure. Concur.
All right. So let's actually talk about this list. So this is the Gladys GT list. So it's a patrol detachment with the chapter tactic of Born Heroes, Whirlwind of Rage, Iron Hands, Master of Sanctity on bike with Mantra of Strength, Canticle of Hate, the Relic Crozius, and Target Protocols. Target Protocols is pick a unit in the shooting phase, they reroll a hit, they reroll a wound, and they reroll a damage. Interesting being on the bike chaplain, but it's probably like 2 turns of buffing and then he's gonna go in. A unit of 5-man units of incursors, 2 company veteran squads with storm shields and Astartes chainswords, 2-man. A 5-man devastator squad with 1 grav cannon, 3 multi-meltas, armored cherub, and then the sergeant with 2 chainswords. A second of the exact same unit, a drop pod, and a land speeder storm. In a vanguard detachment, same chapter. The Hackathon.
Icos?
Sorry.
I think it's Hecaton
Icos.
Icos. The
Hackathon
name's
Icos.
the name Minotaur Dread.
The name Minotaur Dread. Another one of those units of company veterans. Relic Contemptor Dreadnought with twin Volkites and Cyclone missile launchers. And a Dreadnought Chainfist with Plasma Blaster. Ooh, I didn't realize that. The Dreadnought Chainfist there is the same one that's on the yeah, which is
damage 4.
No,
damage 2d3 6 against vehicles, right?
Yep. -4 and
yeah, lookout armigers.
Yep. And then Plasma Blaster. Interesting. And then another Relic Contemptor Dreadnought with Twin Volkite, Cyclone Missile Launcher, Dreadnought Chainfist, Plasma Blaster. This one he makes a character and gives him Merciless Logic, which is the 6s to hit and shooting are explode. I believe that one is just in shooting.
That one might be also melee. Keep looking up. I'll look that one up, but I think that one's melee too.
Yep. 5-man unit of Vanguard vets with Lightning Claw Storm Shield. The sergeant having a Thunderhammer. Second of those squads, exactly the same, and then a 10-man squad with 2 Thunderhammers, one of them being on the sergeant, and then the rest of them having a Lightning Claw, and all of them having Storm Shields.
Vanguard vets.
Yeah,
this good.
Merciless Logic is all attacks, so that thing explodes in melee as well.
Awesome.
And it has 6 attacks in melee, so that's terrifying. Because the strat that makes it a character also gives it +1 attack. I believe it's base 4, +1 for the strat is 5, +1 for charging is 6, sitting on 2 3s, and then actually probably there's no tech marine, right? So yeah, just sitting on 3s, and then
no, it's sitting on 2s because of Born Heroes.
Oh, of course. How could I forget? Sitting on 2s with probably an exploding 6, and then everything is like strength 14, AP 4 damage, and you're just dying.
Double exploding 6s, right? Right. Yeah.
Yes. Every 6 it rolls to hit will make. Also, okay, there's a chaplain, right? So it can reroll a hit roll. So it's just gonna like pick up everything that's not a 6 and just hunt for 6s, because every 6 is 3 attacks.
Yeah, and the math says that he's.
Yeah. Every. So you miss on 1s, but every time you roll a 6, you get 2 more attacks. So yeah, it just picks up everything that's not a 6 and rolls them again. So I think this thing's averaging 8 hits in melee.
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah, pretty close.
Yeah. Which will then wounding on 2s, it's like 7 wounds, and then if it's 28. Yeah, okay. So this kills anything up to and including a Knight Castellan. So yeah, this is the model that solves the Drakari problem. Yeah, -1 damage, whatever. That's still killing like 2 chalices, 3 chalices.
Palaces are vehicles, right?
I think they might be monsters. They might be monsters. So I think it's just 2d3 damage against them.
Trying to remind myself what a plasma blaster is.
Talos is a monster. The plasma blaster is the you can replace the storm bolter that you usually get with the chain fist with contemptor plasma blaster. It's a plasma gun that's 18 inches assault 2.
Yeah, it's a little plasma gun. It is nothing to write home about, but it's fine to have.
It's better than the storm bolter. That
is fair. Because you already have the Volkite, so you're kind of dealing with that problem if that's the thing you need to be dealing with. This sort of like melee dreadnought thing is like pretty neat because all of the Vanguard vets and even like the 2-man veteran squads are really forcing your opponent to like deal with a fast moving threat. They may not have time to like, they definitely won't have time to like shoot out the character protection that's stopping you from hitting this dreadnought. And like the dreadnought moves 8 inches and then it's on top of you and then you're dying to like an unbelievable amount of strength 14, AP 4, 2d3 damage attacks.
Yeah. Why take the named Dreadnought? It's just so that you can just use that slot on like not a captain.
He's just another melee character Dreadnought that you're not allowed to shoot at.
Oh, okay.
Until he gets into melee, yeah.
Yeah, he's a Dreadnought with a plasma cannon and a fist, which is not ideal, but he's not actually a Contemptor Dreadnought, so he doesn't count against your limit on Contemptor Dreadnoughts, which are, by the way, freaking excellent. And then he's a character, so you have 2 character Contemptor Dreadnoughts and then 2 more actual Contemptor Dreadnoughts, and they're all terrifying in melee. You're not allowed to shoot at 2 of them, and all of their guns are fine. Would a custom loadout be better? Sure, but the 4th one wouldn't be legal, so you take him. And the fact that he's a character kind of puts it together. Oh, actually, also his invulnerable save is better, and he hits on 2s, and I think he has more.
Nice.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I like this list a lot. It feels like there's 0 like wasted slots here.
Oh yeah, there's no. Well, yeah. The funny thing is, like, there's no chaff in this list, but at the same time,
3 company veterans.
There's like 6 company veterans, which are really
3
good
units.
Yeah, company veterans are like the biggest pain because, like, a 2-man squad of company veterans and Iron Hands, like, all right, they have troop armor, 4 promotable saves, 4 wounds. You have to overcommit to kill them because if you undercommit, he could pop 5 up villain pains on them, and then like one dude loses 1 hit point. So you have to like put yourself in a position where you can always overshoot them. Yeah.
Yeah, and let's not forget that he's like coming at you with force.
Not to mention the completely full drop pod.
Yep. That hits on
also,
3.
I didn't realize that you could just give the sergeant 2 chance swords, which is hilarious to me. Which I will be doing. Yeah, because
the bolter doesn't like really do anything, so you may as well make him do something in melee.
Yeah, that's the logic so I'm just gonna do that with my Devastators now.
Yeah, because like the footprint on a Contemptor Dread's not that big, right? So you can hide 2 Contemptor Dreads, put your 2 character Dreads out in the open, like you can't shoot at them characters. There's gonna be some veterans next to them, making them unkillable. Actually, no. Does the bodyguard not work on vehicles? The bodyguard may not work on vehicles.
It doesn't work on vehicles.
Okay, cool. We just put some other squads next to them, perhaps the Dreadnoughts that are behind buildings within 3 inches. For reasons, you can't shoot at them. So the whole army just hides, and then if you go first, you just like drop these drop pods and probably kill everything that was ever a threat to a vehicle because like 3 Iron Hands multi-melta devs just like kill any vehicle in the game. Like they're better than Eradicators.
Yeah.
I take that back. I was thinking of the God, what's their name? I think the Vixatrix have a worse bodyguard rule than the regular company veterans.
Do company veterans just like bodyguard vehicles?
Yes, it's just Minotaur character.
Oh, you know what it is? The Iron Hands bodyguard strat got nerfed so that you can't use it to bodyguard vehicles. But the actual bodyguard rule just works at vehicles, so whatever.
Yep. They are characters, they are Minotaurs, they are bodyguarded.
Yeah. The character Dread, by the way, is 6 attacks and melee hitting on 2. So he's doing all the. So yeah, it's just like summing up. It is a fast. Well, yeah, it's a fairly fast, right? Because like everything moves 8 to 12 inches. Very durable melee list, where you can kind of point your durability where it needs to be. The footprint's really not big. Lots of things can deep strike if they have to. Lots of things are bodyguardable, so you can't hit them anyway. There's a bunch of things that will go in a drop pod that can come down on turn 1 and become a threat. So it's like, if it goes second, you're probably not going to get that much shooting into it. If there's a unit sticking out, they can just pop all the strats in that unit, make the shooter a complete nightmare to hit. And then if it goes first, these dev guys are coming down. They're going to kill vehicles. It's really hard to screen out every vehicle in your list from your deployment zone. And then they're just going to start running at you. They're going to start running these assault squads in the buildings, and the Dreadnoughts are going to start moving up the table while these 2-man squads stay in cover and bodyguard all the characters. This list is very scary. I think it's very good. I mean, obviously it's good at winning GT, but yeah, I think it's not just. This is not. We're going to see more of this list.
You want to talk about the other Iron Hands list?
Actually, so I don't know that we need to like dive into all of the Iron Hands lists. I think like this is like the other Iron Hands list is different, but it is a similar idea of like we have Iron Hands things that make our melee unit. We take a successor thing that makes our units like better at melee, or is the other one pure Iron Hand?
The other one's
the other one is Iron Hands.
Oh, the other one's more shooty. Okay. So the one thing I just want to hit on this list is that I think the other really big part of the meta is Grey Knights, and this list is pretty strong against Grey Knights. Your defensive profiles on Dreadnoughts are pretty good against what the Grey Knight shooting is doing. You have the ability to try and just like force denies your opponent's must resolve psychic powers, although admittedly most of those don't go off very close to you, and this list doesn't have enough command points to really throw that away too much. More interestingly, I think all of the profiles in this army, like all of the melee profiles in this army, are just like A+ against Dreadknights. Dreadknights completely fall apart against these like Vanguard Vet Lightning Claw units with exploding 6s. And they also have no chance against Fists. Like if any of these, like you can't put any of your 5 Dreadknights within like 16 inches of a Dreadnought, because if that Dreadnought survives with 1 wound, it just walks over and picks your Dreadnought up in 1 combat phase. And that's like that's a huge issue as the Grey Knight player positioning your Dreadknights.
Yeah. The only thing I want to call out in the other list, by the way, is I highly respect the easy build plastic taking 3 of the easy build plastic Dreadnoughts Contemptors.
Yeah. Also, they don't cost command points, and that's kind of nice.
Yeah, because they're just regular Contemptors.
Yep.
Yeah, he also takes a repulsor, which is
yeah, the repulsor's fascinating. Kevin, you're an Iron Hand player. What do you think about that repulsor? What's it doing for us?
So he has an Ironstone, so it's a T8 Ironstone, 6-up Feel No Pain model, and sometimes some lists just aren't good into that. Like
Grey Knights.
Grey Knights aren't good. Depends on how many chickens AdMech brings.
Yeah, so the guy holding the Ironstone is a Tech Marine, and I can't imagine that he's not babysitting the repulsor.
Oh yeah, I mean Ironstone doesn't work on anything else. Everything else is a Dreadnought.
I don't. What is he transporting?
I don't think he's. I mean, like
it might just be
transporting
gunboat,
the Blade Guard or.
I've been wildly unimpressed with pushing repulsors. I've been unimpressed with repulsors, but I've been even more unimpressed with repulsors that are trying to push things up the table.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, there's a reason why repulsors are heavy support now and not transport.
Because they always should have been.
Yes, because they're always heavy support. They have too many guns.
They have more guns than passengers.
Is that the cutoff?
Yes.
Excellent.
Math checks out.
Yeah. So like obviously shooty Iron Hands also good. This list does have a melee element, but the other list was like, tilted melee with some shooting, and this list is tilted shooting with some melee. Something we have an evolving meta. We'll see where on the spectrum we're supposed to land with Iron Hands lists, and it's kind of exciting that we have like a thing to innovate on rather than just like, which version you have 10,000 Drakari and transports did I lose to today? Doesn't really matter what my list does. It's worse than that. So yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. I think this is a very interesting time, and I think that heading into LVO, we're going to see a lot of innovations come up. I think the Hammer Competitive Innovations article is going to be interesting again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where this takes us.
So I am excited about Iron Hands. I'm excited about Iron Hands being good. I think they might have a reasonable matchup into Grey Knights. I am still concerned about just the Dark Eldar menace. Even if this list has a reasonable Dark Eldar matchup, I think that this list certainly does have some matchups that might be a struggle, and I don't know that the Dark Eldar matchup has like that many bad matchups, and I think it might be crushing everyone, which is not great. The meta still really concerns me. But hey, maybe this list is our savior, and like this list can keep Dark Eldar down, and then other things can just compete against this list. We'll find out.
I think the first list has really strong legs into the Dark Eldar matchup. I do think that like they probably want to change one of the Volkites into some other gun, maybe. I don't know. If you're actually doing mix and match, I actually kind of like still having the Volkites because you're acknowledging that you're actually more of a melee force. But
yeah, the ability to just like walk up and start smashing things with the chains fists does a fair amount for your Dark Eldar matchup. Their guns are fairly short range, so you kind of have to wander into your melee range at some point. All right, so we want to talk a little bit about some of our GW previews and such?
Yeah, let's switch gears. And so we got a preview of Custodes rules today on Warhammer Community. And it's Necron Command Protocols, but better.
It's Necron Command Protocols, but weird. I don't know about better. Well, you got.
So I have a feeling that these are going to be global range, and that just make them better.
Oh, you mean I don't have to have a particular warlord for it to work, and then if I don't have my characters, I stop getting them? Oh, all right, I guess they're better. So the way these work is there are some number of them. We don't know how many there are, but you're going to pick 3 for your army. One's your primary, one's your secondary, one's your tertiary. They had fancy names because they're custodes. I'm calling them that. Each one of them has 2 stances. You cannot repeat a stance. When you start the game, you are in your primary kata, functionally, and you pick one of the 2 stances in it. On your next turn, you can either go to the other stance in that kata or go to your secondary. And then it's the same deal. Once you're in your secondary, on your next turn, you can either go to your next stance in your secondary or go to your tertiary. You are obligated to be one, but they're all straight upside because even the ones that have like a downside, they're all are optional. You can quote unquote foul out and be like, all right, starting the first one. All right, go into my secondary. All right, go into my tertiary. All right, switch my stance. Turn 5. Oh, I'm out. So if you always if you jump straight from first to second to third, you will not have one on your 5th turn. I don't know that's a big deal. It is a thing that like it matters. There's not. I don't know if we can like dive super deep into it. The ones they spoiled are kind of neat. There might be like 20. It might just be these 3. Who knows?
I'm gonna guess that there's gonna be. So they mentioned that every storm host has a storm host. That's Stigmar. Shield host has a favored one.
Okay. So there's gonna be
there's currently 5. There's currently 5 storm hosts. So unless
shield hosts.
Unless they introduce another Sigmarite into 40k. Man, I completely lost my train. There's probably going to
be 5 at least. Okay. Yeah. So we have 3 of them. They're all kind of interesting. We've got one where your opponent sometimes can't fall back. There's some options for like sweep attacks. There's things that turn off rerolls in melee. There's like a lot going on here. There's advancing and shooting, advancing further. All of these are pretty neat. I don't know that any of them are like wildly game changing. But it's neat to give a little bit more complexity to Custodes because Custodes is just like excellent data sheets with 4 stratagems that are really good on defense. And it's kind of cool to see them get like some little bit more complicated rules, even if those rules aren't like wildly powerful. Because again, I don't think their day sheets are going to get weaker, so they don't need like insane rules, and they're already a good army. What did you think about them, Kevin? You're our actual custode player.
I'm hoping for a little bit more than this for the army. Because while these are good, they're not. None of these are like game changing. They're definitely closer to the Necron Protocols level of this is a nice benefit, but they're not drastically changing how the army plays.
Fair. Yeah, I'm with you. Go ahead.
So things that interest me and that we might be able to make some inferences from. So stance 2. Each time this unit makes a normal move or advances in your movement phase, in your following shooting phase is counting as remaining stationary. So the advances in remaining stationary obviously works with rapid fire weapons and assault weapons to great effect. The fact that they mentioned normal move makes me wonder if they're going to get something similar to bolter discipline.
It actually makes me wonder if some of the weapons are going to become heavy. Like, what if instead of like rapid fire 1, like all the custodian spears and axes just become like heavy 4 or something?
Huh.
That's interesting.
What weapons do they? I guess their axes could become heavy. That would be.
It doesn't have to be like an anti-tank weapon. Like, it could just be like a heavy bolter, like something that's like good against infantry with like a high rate of fire at any range. Like, what if instead of like rapid fire 1, all the guns are just like heavy 4 or 5 mag 1/1? Like, all of a sudden, this is just like a reasonable anti-infantry profile. Now you're hitting on 3s when you move, except for unless you use this Kato, then you're hitting on 2s. It's like an option. Also, like, the Forge World stuff's all assault or rapid fire, right? There's no like infantry heavy weapon for Forge World.
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds
yeah.
To me.
The other thing that this one, along with a couple of other ones, also makes me think that only infantry are going to get these. Like, I don't think we're going to see these on vehicles. Like, I don't think we're going to see, like, because, like I said, one of them can trap people in combat. I highly doubt that, like, Caladiuses are going to be allowed to trap people in combat. That's just weird.
No, that would be a fucking disaster.
It would be really dumb. Like, my Caladius is going to drift over to your guardsmen. Now they can't move. Awkward.
They can't fall back as we shoot gravity to push them back. Wait, what?
Yeah. So I'm fairly convinced this is something infantry only. Maybe bikes will probably get them too. Which this will be very interesting on bikes. When like Custodian jet bikes, they move 20 inches and still shoot. Like, oh, that'll be quite the turn. But yeah, I wouldn't be. I wouldn't. This makes me think we're either gonna get heavy weapons or maybe we'll get like a bolter discipline like ability. I hope GW doesn't give them bolter discipline just because like I don't want custodians just to be different Space Marines. Like, let's just give them bolter discipline because Space Marines have bolter disciplines and they're better. Like, just make their heavy weapons heavy. I think that would be sweet if you make all their weapons like heavy and just like way up the shot count rather than like having them do this half range thing, because they're supposed to be about this like sort of like slow steady advance. And one of like their biggest issues is like long range anti-infantry firepower. Like, if they're not within 12 inches, they just can't kill infantry because all their things are rapid fire and their dudes all move 6 inches. And I think like just giving them high rate of fire heavy weapons fixes some of that problems. I don't know if this is like the solution, but it would be neat.
I think it's better than giving them bolter discipline.
I'm concerned it's going to be bolter discipline because if you think about like, so right now one of the problems with their Terminators is they don't really feel that different from the regular guys because everyone's already in Terminator armor.
Fair enough.
So giving Terminator's ability to deep strike and just like rapid fire long range might be something they're looking for. Because I think it might be full bolter discipline. Like, your bikers are always rapid firing, your Terminators are always rapid firing, your other guys can stand still.
I don't know if they can print your bikers always rapid fire for a faction that bikers are equipped with hurricane bolters. Like, the bikers might just have to be too expensive to be viable melee threats at that point.
Yeah, what's a hurricane bolter these days if they don't have extra AP?
Like, the best our factions just show like a bunch of toughness 3 infantry with that armor saves. Like,
okay, what So
So the issue with this is that if that's a thing, right? It's not that like, okay, like, yeah, it's fine against Admech and Drakari. Current Drakari, it doesn't really do that much against because of Material Toughness 5 for reasons, but it kind of disallows like witches and Goblet Warriors to ever be viable outside of transports, and it also would make all of our squishy infantry armies haven't come out yet. Like our 9th edition codexes that we're still waiting on are Demons, Tau, Astra Militarum, Eldar. Like all of our toughness 3 bad armor save armies are just like not out yet. And I think if you just like, all right, Custodians have 12-shot jet bikes as just like at all ranges, all of a sudden those armies just become heinously hard to balance because they're either tanking enough to survive that, which means they can survive anything, or they're unplayable because that thing exists. That's an extreme. Obviously, there's some nuance in there, but I think that's just like gonna be really hard to make work.
So we don't think their bikes are going to get any slower, right? They're probably going to fly.
Their bikes
I
just look
don't
like 14.
imagine they get slower. Why would they?
So as of right now, their rapid fire threat range is 26 inches.
Correct.
And they're also like good at melee, so you're often sending them in. I agree the rapid firing at all ranges is powerful for bikes. I don't know how much it changes how much those units play, because like the secret of Custodes is you have like some slow guys standing in the back, and you're like, you need the bikes to go out first because you need to play the game round 1. You can't just like actually spend the first turn trudging across.
Maybe, but like you can send a unit of bikes in, but you don't have to send like all of your bikes in. And then like their threat range is 26 inches. Like you're gonna hit me, but if you hit me with your rapid fire and you have to be within 12, like I can actually hit you back. If you just like hit my front line from 24 inches away, like oh boy, like if I'm like a demon army and just like, all right, my bloodletters feel sad, and like I think they're gonna want Khorne demons to like be viable. Maybe not. Who knows? I hope it's not full bolter discipline though, just because that's so samey. I just want them to get heavy weapons and have this be neat for that. Or alternatively, GW just has written words here that don't matter. Because there's a real chance GW just wrote words here that don't matter, and it's just like you're all rapid fire, and it's normal rapid fire rules, and the staying stationary thing is the same as normal moving. Whatever, we don't care.
One follow Custodians. How do we feel about not being able to fall back on a, we'll say 50-50, but slightly lower than that?
I like it, but it's not something that I think you can like really build around. Because if it's 50-50, then like half of the time, like if you're relying on being able to just prevent someone from falling back and not be shot at, then half the time you're going to be stuck out with your ass in the wind.
I hate this rule. I think it's really bad. I think it's bad for the army. I think it's bad for the game. Fallback, like you can't fall back rules should either be things like the Contorted Epitome, which is like this 200-point model with a 6-inch aura of you almost never can fall back. And like, all right, I'm paying for it. Sweet. I have to like meet a bunch of conditions. Like the Epitome needs to be close to a combat that's happening, and your leadership needs to be bad, either through debuffs or like other things, and then you can't fall back. Excellent. Cool. This thing's like, all right, my army, like my unit touches your unit, and like my unit is super durable, right? Because I'm playing Custodians. If you fall back and your whole army shoots at me, I can pop some strats, and like we'll see if I survive or not. If you can't fall back, I'm gonna win the game. So like let's roll some dice and find out if we're still playing. Because if you fall back, we're gonna play a game. Like you're gonna have to shoot a bunch of stuff at me. We'll see if I win. And if you don't fall back, you know, I'm presumably a bunch of OPSEC custodes on an objective, holding your last guardsman hostage. Like I just don't think this rule plays well on custodian models.
So, given your opinion on that, how do you feel about like the Night Lord's ability to prevent a fallback?
So the Night Lord's one is what, on a 4-up? Or is it just, no, it's like 1 CP you can't.
It's just a straight up
right?
CP.
Yeah, so that's like very different though, because you can design. All right, if you're like, all right, that's the thing Night Lords have. You can just be like, all right, this is a rule that happens all the time. It's like the AOS double turn. Like this is a bad mechanic, so we've made it less terrible by making it happen less often. Like that's not good. Like if the mechanic is not good, so you're trying to make it not happen a lot, you should remove the mechanic. Like for Night Lords, first of all, right now, Night Lords are a terrible army. They have this one busted rule. Sure. When their new book comes out, we'll see if they keep that or not. If they'll have to balance around it, like you can certainly do that. I just feel like it's heinously difficult to bounce around these like low percentage things because it happens like 40% of the time that you can't fall back from custodes. So like, how do you point that? Do you point that like that you could never fall back? Like, I don't think so, because then the custodes are just bad. So you're just basically ignoring the fact that it exists, which means that when it does happen, it's just like the most miserable feel bad. Custodes are also like an army that's kind of miserable to have that rule against because, like I said, like when you get to fall back from them and shoot at them with their entire army, sometimes they just don't die because they have their custodians with presumably 4 vulnerable saves and at least 2 armor and some number of defensive. Whereas like Night Lords, like they have to pop that strap because if you fall back from them, you're just going to murder them. They have 3 up saves, 1 wound, and no vulnerable saves.
Yep.
And on top of that, you can just like charge it and kill them, and like you can't do that to custodians. Like you can't just like, oh yeah, my melee units can go in and kill them. Like no, like your melee unit like might just not go in and kill them. I super don't like it. On the other hand, if it was just like, all right, one command, like if it was like 2 command points, you can't fall back, like something with a real cost to it that happens all the time. That's kind of more okay with me because, all right, now there's a cost that you're really paying. And I don't know how, like we said, these things are fairly low impact. I don't know how much of cost you're really paying to just be like, cool, this is the you can't fall back turn. Like instead of the, this is the turn where I get +1 attack but only 1 damage with my swings this time. Like, is it really changing that much if your 4 custodians kill 3 more guards than they were going to before? I don't think so. So I don't like it. That's my rant done.
I also think it's like, because it's not every turn, it almost feels the idea that you're gonna like see the future and know that on turn 3 that's the turn you're gonna do it. Like, yeah, don't get me wrong, good players can kind of protect the game, but like, man,
not to that level.
You have a lot more choice on this one though, right? Because like, if this is my second protocol, right? I'm gonna be like, all right, turn 1, I'm gonna like advance up the table. All right, and then like, turn 2, I'm gonna look at the table like, all right, am I charging you this turn? No? Cool. I'm gonna pick the second protocol of this. All right, turn 3, am I gonna charge you this turn? No, I'm gonna pick the other protocol of that. All right, turn 4, are we melee now? Cool, now you can't fall back. Like, you have a lot of choice. That being said, I don't think I'm ever, but then again, right, like as a Custodians player, I'm never building a game plan for this because I'm only like 40% to do it. So this is the sort of role where, like, me as the Custodians player, I have to play like this never happens. My opponent has to play like it always happens. And like, I don't know, it's like Gilman coming back to life. Like, if I'm playing Ultramarines and I have a Gilman on the table, I am playing under the assumption that my Gilman dies once and then is dead. My opponent has to play like Gilman dies once and then comes back to life and just walks through his turn through his army because he doesn't have another phase to kill him. And I just don't like. I don't think they play well. Things that just happen on like a random. It's like, I'd rather just like make a real cost to it and then just make it permanent, or don't put it in the army.
Yeah. As much as I don't like Celestine just coming back instantaneously, how powerful that would be if it just could. I've talked with you about some games you played against Sisters. It's just like, oh, you rolled a die. Celestine rolled a 1. Oh, that's just like the dynamic of the game from both players' perspective is different. And
yeah, like when Celestine comes back on a 2-up, like we're both just playing like it's going to happen. And like when they roll the 1, you're like, oh, cool. Like, I've won. The game is over. You lost 200 points. And like, this is how you play Celestine. You position her in an awkward place so that you have to like kill her in shooting, and then like you're not gonna be able to charge her. And then she comes back to life at the end of the shooting phase and then gets to like walk into your HQs and murder them all. Or, you know, whatever. Like, you don't give her that charge, but like her range is 24 inches. It's heinously difficult to kill her in shooting and not have her just be like in range of something. But sometimes she just rolls a 1 and then the game's over because your opponent's plan went away for no cost. And like, this is more miserable than that because it's like more likely to happen than that. That being said, the other thing is like, I don't think Custodians players are going to pick this mode that often because the percentages are so low. So like, you're just mostly going to not pick it. I think you're mostly just going to pick other options because the other options do have real mechanics that fire off all of the time, even if they're lower impact. Like, if I'm playing Custodian Army, I don't think I pick this option like almost ever, unless there's like, because it's per unit that's trying to fall back. So like, if I look at my opponent's army of like 500 guards units and I'm like, okay, this turn I'm touching 11 guard units. All right, cool. I'm using this one. I'm going to make a success somewhere and someone's going to be stuck on melee with me. But for the most part, I'm just like, no.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to our more custode rules. So there's a second article that was released that has updates to a bunch of troops. Choices for the Custode section of it, we got a bunch of weapon updates. So Sentinel Blades went up a strength and are now flat 2 damage, and Guardian Spears are also up a strength and flat 2 damage. Now, this takes Sentinel Blades from a 5 is already a good number, but 6 is better, and put Spears from that good number to 7, which is almost not. It's not actually relevant, but it's not as much of an upgrade as a Sentinel Blade got.
Spears got +1 to wound raiders, and swords, which are no longer a viable unit, and swords got +1 to wound Drakari infantry, and Tau infantry, and demon infantry, and other custodes, and space marines and gravis armor. It's going from 6 to 7 gives you +1 to wound against light vehicles, which no one plays and also don't get into melee very often. And then 5 to 6 is +1 to wound everything. Anything that's toughness 3, anything that's toughness 5, anything that's toughness 6. Which is the meta. That's what's the meta that's toughness 3, 5, or 6 right now? It's Drakari infantry characters, Dreadknights are toughness 6. The anything in gravis armor, which is a fair amount of marine lists. Marines on bikes, orcs on bikes, orc boys, orc buggies, orc knobs, everything's T5 or T6. It's relevant in the meta right now. So the +1 strength to 6 is huge. Also, the swords got +1 AP in shooting, which they should not have. Yeah. Also, the swords are already the meta option because the swords what you have to take with storm shield. So if you're just Spear switch to 7, swords are staying at 5, and neat, we're still probably taking the swords. Now we're definitely taking the swords. There's no question.
Yeah, and the gun got better. Yeah, it's just so both of them went to flat damage too. It's funny. I remember at the end of the 8th edition, I would have just told you flat damage 2 was the correct choice all the time. And there's so much reduced damage by 1. I almost wish the D3 was still there.
It's worse. I think it's worse in most options. Everything is 3 wounds, there's -1 damage taken. I don't want 2 damage. This is bad.
Or 1 wound. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, or twice as many attacks at once.
So, as Ben said, so the pistols got an AP, got a damage on the Sentinel Blade, so that's great. They've also confirmed that all custodes are leadership 11, which means you can take a 7. You have to be a 7-man squad before you can worry about morale. No.
Yeah, I've never seen a custodian squad fail morale in my life, and I don't really plan on starting now. 10 was unfailable, 11 is also unfailable, whatever. It's cute.
But it's more of an improvement than that. Custode guard used to be leadership 8.
Oh, were they really?
Yeah.
Okay, I've still never seen a custodian fail morale in my life because they come in 3-man squads, and the 3-man squads are still unkillable. Sure.
You're not wrong, but I'm just saying it's...
Yeah, okay.
It's actually a full +3 leadership.
It's a real upgrade. You're right. I was wrong.
And if there's any ever leadership abilities that are out there in the game, custodes, I guess, are immune to those.
Yeah, there's a fair amount of you can give things penalties on leadership. No one plays with them, and if anyone was ever thinking of playing with them, they'll go back to thinking about not playing with them because you give a custode -4 leadership before a 3-man squad is afraid of failing leadership. Whatever.
So yeah. So that's enough on custodes. Ben, as the resident Gene Circle player.
Oh yes, because I've played so many games of GSC. And
you've probably played more competitive games of GSC than I have.
You have played more than I have.
I've definitely played more competitive games of GSC than you have. I brought them to 2 tournaments. So GSC update. The cult banner, which used to be real ones to hit in melee, is now at the end of beginning of your command phase, you bring back D3 dudes into the unit, which is wild. You're calling the cult. The cult you're rallying.
How many guys come back?
D3, yeah. You're rallying the troops to the banner, which is a really wild idea for how banners are going to work. I doubt anyone else will get this mechanic, but man, wouldn't that be an insane thing? How do guard command banners work? You just bring dudes to the banner. I don't think that's going to happen for GSC though, because you're supposed to just be hiding dudes in the populace. You're just surprise, we're calling Uncle Bob to the banner, and Uncle Bob's going to join my unit with his claws and muscles. This rule's wild. I don't Well, you need points on everything to figure out if it's good. GSC are traditionally so squishy, your whole unit goes away, except they also said that everything's going to toughness 4, which is interesting.
So currently units that can take a banner are the Acolytes, the Baker Acolytes, I forget their name, and Neophytes, and the troop choice. Sorry, not the humans.
The elite choice. Yeah, there's Neophytes, Neophyte Acolytes, Neophyte hybrids, and then the Acolyte something. They're two troop choices and an elite choice. And some of them are more mutated than others. The sort of like mutant troop choice goes up to like these. Well, they all go to 20-man squads, but the mutant troop choice is the one that you actually saw in 20-man squads, because they could take a bunch of like these like heavy mining weapons that could kill actually anything. Like,
no, that was say that as troop choice.
Yeah, I don't say that as like hyperbole. Like, they just kill anything. They do like D3 damage, and then they have these like weird mechanics where if they beat your toughness or beat your wounds count on a D6, your model just like goes away regardless of any rules you have. Like, fun fact, it's just like you can kill Gaz way early. If he like drops to 5 wounds, you just expect the 6 and kill him. But this unit's like interesting, and like it was never a tanky unit. So as this rule is sweet, but I'm kind of doubtful that it's good. I suspect, unless we get some really wild changes to how GSC work, this is going to be like old Necron reanimation protocols. We're like, cool, I can bring guys back into my unit. The whole thing dies in one swing. Because like we're currently killing 20-man Necron warrior units in one shot, and like there's no world in which GSC are tanking that. Or if they are, like GW has made an AdMech level mistake, because they should not be. And I doubt their killing power is going to go down. So if they're like that tanky and they can kill like they currently can kill, that's a problem.
Yeah.
So what I was going to say, I suspect that those 3 choices are going to be reanimate D3 guys, but there's another model with a banner, the Acolyte Iron Ward. And I'm guessing that he's going to work very similar to the way enhanced data tethers are, where like he kind of like gives an ability to a unit in the command phase, and that's going to be summon the Cult. And you can either summon the Cult on any of these troop choices and get D3 back, or you can summon the Cult on like an Aberrant, just be like, here's an Aberrant back. So he's essentially a Technomancer who's summoning the Cult.
Yeah, I'm certainly curious to see it. So this rule, in the end, I don't think it's great. The thing that's more exciting to me is like everything going to toughness 4, especially in the world of strength 6 Custodian Swords. That's just like a lot of durability. Like toughness 3 is so unbelievably squishy in the current meta. The 4th point of toughness does a lot against a lot of weapon profiles that are pretty popular right now. I'll be very curious to see it. All right, the last change also affects an army I play, which is Tau. Both Tau both Tau like basic weapons, that's pulse rifles and pulse carbines, got plus 6 inches to their range and 1 extra armor penetration. So this brings pulse carbines up to 24 inches at 5 neg 1 assault 2. What's up?
Looking at it right now, it says it's 501.
Carbine's still 501?
Yeah.
Oh, all right, never mind. Carbines are 501 assault 2. This doesn't really matter. No, people are still going to not bring carbines, because rifles are rapid fire 1 at 36 inches at 5 neg 1. Carbines have always had this issue of like there's like this 3-inch band where they outperform rifles, and actually now that that band got pushed up to 6 inches, but turns out they didn't even pick up the AP, so whatever. Carbines will continue to be not seeing any play except for on Pathfinders, who will never shoot them because they want to shoot their marker lights instead. But the Fire Warrior change is fascinating. The change to 36 inches is kind of weird in this meta where it's just like we're not really playing the game at that range anymore. 36 inches is just like kind of a meme number to put on your troop choices, like whatever, they shoot across the table. 18-inch rapid fire, however, is getting to be like a real thing. And if they keep their old rules of like triple tapping at rapid fire range next to their dedicated HQ choice, that starts to become a lot of firepower out of Fire Warriors. I still have significant doubts about Fire Warriors being anything viable. They're currently the same point cost as AdMech Rangers, and that comparison is an actual joke. even if you give them this gun, that comparison continues to be an actual joke. Like Rangers hit on 3s, 4s if they move. We hit on 4s all of the time. 5s if we're shooting through dense terrain, which Rangers are still just hitting on 4s. There's no way of like just increasing our ballistic skill to 2 because I doubt GW is going to just be like, oh yeah, you can just increase your ballistic skill. But hey, maybe they'll make some heinous mistake with marker lights and just let us do that. Please don't. But that being said, I'm excited for Fire Warriors to not be complete garbage and like actually just take battalions rather than taking spearhead, so I don't need to touch my troop choices. So that's kind of exciting, and I do like the look of Fire Warriors. So if Fire Warriors end up being playable in like a much larger scale, that'll be pretty fun.
Any other changes?
So that's like the changes that GW has dropped so far. All 3 of these codexes are coming out quote unquote soon, which actually means next year. GSC and Custodians were supposed to be this year, but they got pushed out, which makes Tau not the first codex of next year.
I really hope this doesn't delay the Chaos codexes.
Oh yeah, and the Chaos codexes will be, I don't know. They said the Chaos codexes are coming out next year, which probably means the end of next year. Because that's how October worked, and that's basically how everything has worked since they've ever said like, oh, it'll come out in that year. Yeah, that means like the last month. And with COVID delays, I wouldn't be shocked if like some Chaos things get spilled into like 2023, which is completely miserable. Chaos needs amazing amounts of help. I'm very curious how they're going to handle these next 3 codexes because Custodes, Tau, and Genestealer cults are 3 more codexes that are getting 9th edition books that really have no other analogies that already have 9th edition books. There is no book that plays like Custodes. There is no book that plays like Tau. There is no book that plays like Genestealer cults. And we're going to... GW has a real opportunity here to just screw up the game again. At this point, I've lost all faith in their ability to balance the game. I really have. And they've showed pretty repeatedly that when they're trying to build an army with new unique mechanics, orcs, Drakari, where you're not just like, yeah, these things move and shoot and have some fighting and like they have like a traditional game plan, quote unquote, they've just like wildly screwed it up. And then Genestealer cults, Custodians, and Tau, I think have the most unconventional game plans of any of the armies in the game. I don't think any army in the game has a weirder game plan than those 3 armies. All 3 of them coming out one after the next with the way GW has been handling balance patches is really concerning to me. Like, don't get me wrong, I play 2 of these 3 armies. I'm very excited for them. But man, there's a real chance that GSC just like breaks the game in half, or that Tau is just tabling everyone in 2 turns and GW just like doesn't fix it for months. And that's concerning because Tau has one game plan right now that 2 people off the table. So unless they get a fundamental redesign into an army that can like play multiple phases, like actually hold objectives through durability, there's a real chance that Tau armies just like walk up to their opponent and just bucket of dice them off the table in like ways that are just like truly not okay.
I'm like scared to see what a broadside's gonna be.
Yeah, like people think broadsides are bad right now, and like they're fine. Someone brought 3 of them and went 4-1 in GT. I'm going to try and do that again in a couple weeks. Like, I'm going to bring them to a GT. Like, they're not excellent, but they're fine. And people think they're awful. GW thinks they're truly, truly bad. And I am concerned that they are going to just get completely pushed through the roof, like strength 8 with like T6 or flat 3 damage weapons and just be super not okay.
Have to wait and see how much GW screws up the balance of things. Like I'm worried that like going on off of what you said with the when they're trying to build armies with new fancy mechanics and they just completely just screw the pooch on it. Yeah, that's my worry when we're coming to armies that I don't know, I guess like are a little bit more about outside the archetype of what we usually see, like say Eldar doesn't really play like any other army, so presumably GW is probably going to want to do something like more experimental and out there, and that could just totally break the game.
Yeah, I actually think Eldar and Grey Knights play fairly similarly, where they're very much buff-centric psychic armies. That being said, the targets for their buffs are very different, but they are still buff centric psychic armies. Like they have something to work off there. But GW is like 50-50 on psychic armies being okay. Like they swung too hard with Grey Knights. Thousands is a bigger in a good place. I think the army's just like well balanced. But we'll see.
Don't worry, guys. Though over in AOS land, dragons have been balance patched twice before they've been released.
Yeah, why can't GW do this for 40k? All right, let's hit this one thing and then we can sign off. So for those of you who don't play Age of Sigmar, the latest and greatest thing is there's an army that's basically Sigmar Rights, which is like Sigmar Space Marines riding dragons. This is sweet. GW has released the new Sigmar like book, so it's like basically codex. They call them battle tomes. Battle tomes Sigmar came out. The models aren't out yet, but all the other Sigmar models are in there. So they released the rules for for everything at once, and like dragons will come soon. And basically people looked at the dragons and were like, "Oh, this isn't okay. This isn't close to okay." And then Kevin, what was the sequence of events that led them to getting nerfed?
Unclear what got them to be nerfed because once again they weren't released. I don't know if people were playing proxied models and finding that they were broken. The sequence of nerfs were first there was a warlord trait that you could put on a monster, that gave all monsters -1 to be wounded in melee, and AOS has significantly more melee in 40k, but even then that would be the equivalent would be like a captain being able to take a warlord trait that gives all elite choices -1 to be wounded in melee. This is so powerful, but that got nerfed to be just things that are called behemoths in it, and that essentially means there's no great 40k analogy. It's kind of like heavy supports.
Yeah, it's good, but it's not your whole army anymore. And
in AOS, in the Stormcast Battle Tome, there's only one model that's not a named character that can take it. So it's like very clear just on that logic right there that they're not just going to release a command trait that's for one model only. Like that doesn't make sense. So when that nerf came through, then they said like, "Oh, this was air quotes always the intention." It's like, no, you can't tell me that you made a warlord trait for one model. That's not true. And then the next set of nerfs are all the Stormcast riding dragons are just got more expensive. Once again,
not even out yet.
That one, they're just like, yeah, we've did some math. You can fit these things into an army or these things into an army. Here are the new point costs. They cost more, but they conveniently fit in these like specific combinations of units. So that's cool. And it's like, oh, so like clearly like, their playtest team, like we're still playtesting it, and they're just like, yeah, no team, this is a problem. And can we get this for 40k, please? Like, can we get GW listening to their playtest team so much that we get nerfs for 4 codexes are out? Because like this is a really bad optic for GW and AOS, and AOS is a very small community. Competitive AOS is a tiny community. I don't think we hear that much about dragons being busted. Like even if they were busted for like a very long time. Maybe with LVO coming up, if dragons are out for LVO for AOS, we'd hear about it. But I don't know. That's just like a weird sequence of events that makes me think that they could do better with 40k.
Or at least be more aggressive.
Oh yeah, for sure.
They did announce in that balance patch though that I believe they said AOS is also getting quarterly balance patches. AOS is also in a weird place where the 2 starter factions have gotten their battle tomes, and that's it so far. And AOS 3.0 has been out for 6 months.
That's
yeah.
All right. So with that, shall we hop off?
Yeah, let's call it for the evening. thank you everybody for tuning into this week's show. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank my contributors again, Kevin Lieb and Benjamin Rubenstein. Be sure to catch us next week when we yell about more GW related things. And also, if you got your Nurgling, your Squig plushie, there's been a recall on it for reasons. So, W.
Don't lick the squig.
What was actually wrong with the squig? Was it like stitching or something?
Yeah.
This is a choking. One of the pom poms in the back is badly stitched. It's a choking hazard. But
Okay.
shouting "Don't lick the squig" at people is funnier. So let's just go with that.
That is that's a Soul Bond, which is the AOS RPG reference. There's a
It's an AOS reference in general, right?
Yeah,
Like I'm pretty sure the Gloomspite gets lick squigs to get high. It's an orc thing. I don't know. Orcs are weird.
So, Chris, it's a legendary relic that if your players find, you can use it to like hop around and do some like basic, already powerful stuff. But the thing is able to like travel the multiverse, but only if you lick the squig. And then when you lick the squig, you roll a die. And sometimes you can see the future, and your GM gives you like a hint of an event that's about to come. Or the Goblin King sends an army against you. Don't roll that result.
And on that note, I think that's the podcast.
Yep, that's the pod. All right, let's end it there. Hit the like bell and whatever. I can't even think about anything but licking squigs now. So, see you next week.
Lick the squig, hit the squig.
Don't lick the squig.
Don't roll any squigs. All right, cheers.
Bye, everyone. Don't roll once.